I feel like religion is necessary, but like as a code for kind of people to like, organize their lives.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Atheist Vanguard. I am Derek Hawke.
I'm Rachel Watson.
I'm Andrew Rogers.
Righty, let's roll that interview.
Welcome to the Atheist Vanguard. My name is Ben Esteville, and today I'm speaking with...
Sharif Etiampo.
Nice name, Sharif. Can you tell me about your faith traditions? You had an interesting story about how you came to the faith.
Yeah, I grew up in a Muslim household up until the age of about 3. My mother was a Muslim, but she defected to Christianity and moved out of my grandparents' house. And when I moved with her, like I had to kind of take on those Christian traditions as well. But when I moved to this country, I'm from Ghana, West Africa originally. When I moved to the U.S., I kind of started. I was exposed to more media and more like atheist content on like YouTube and stuff like that. And I kind of like lost that interest in religion. So like I kind of like at this point where I'm at is like I feel like religion is necessary, but like as a code for kind of people to like organize their lives. Like I recognize that a lot of religions, like for me anyway, like a lot of religions, when you like look at at a base level, it's just like a set of rules to govern people, like to control people like that are living within a certain time period. So like when you look at like the beginnings of Christianity, I feel like it's tailored to kind of marginalize or keep women, children in check, and to kind of maintain the social this caste system.
Do you think there's a truth, undeniable truth to the religion?
So which religion? Christianity?
Either one.
Either one.
Either one.
I think there's something that we don't understand out there, and I think both of those religions kind of put that out. Like you can't question God or whatever. Like when someone says to me you can't question God, like I don't view it as you can't, like his actions are like infallible or whatever. I view it as there's like a truth out there that we will never ever be able to comprehend. So just don't try. Just try to live your life by this code, by this book that we've given you.
So how do we know that the people who had the code got the code right? Is there any way to cross-reference,
Not really.
I
think we're just following, and at some point you have to make your own code or make your own religion. I feel like religion should be personal in some way.
So it should be. So everyone should have a religion that should be personal.
Yeah, personal to themselves. Yeah.
To themselves.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about people who are non-believers like myself, atheists, who don't have a religious code? There's more of a philosophical code, a do unto others kind of just basic reality where we're living.
I think I use the two interchangeably, philosophical code, religious code. I don't know. I think what it is for me, we live on a floating orb. So I don't really understand that.
So you're not a flat earther?
Nah, I'm not a flat earther. But
we're orbing. We're orbiting here.
Yeah,
we're orbiting. It's
orbital.
orbital.
On a floating orb, and then around that floating orb is darkness, and then some more shinier floating orbs.
Dark matter, even.
Yeah. So
more deep, unexplained mysteries of the universe.
I don't understand that until science or someone tells me what's up.
Now here's a question for you. Does any of that make any impact in your day-to-day life, whether there's dark matter or not, whether the Earth is going to be flat or round or not? I mean,
I'd like to think as a human being, I'm curious about those things, and that curiosity, but not in a day. I don't go to class thinking, I'm on a floating orb right now.
Yeah, that's not really a factor in your day-to-day.
Yeah, but it's things you think about though, every once in a while, it comes up. And I think it's natural to be curious about it.
Well, I'm sure if you're a student, you're exploring truth. Have you had any philosophy classes?
I had, no. I've had a sociology class. That's about it.
So sociology, did they make an impression on you that it should be, it's good for things to be equitable in society?
Equitable?
That we should treat each other with mutual respect?
Yeah, my sociology class was focused more on facades and how we're all kind of acting according to codes, once again. Wherever, whether that code comes from traditions or our culture, whatever.
So there's a lot of codes that humans work with, a lot of guidelines stacked on stacks. We have our legislative codes, that the police enforce. We have cultural codes that society in some way or another enforces. We have religious codes depending on what faith tradition, getting back to faith traditions. What was it about the Christian tradition, do you think, that pulled your mom away and really got her into that? Was there
I would say it was less related to to the Christian religion and more related to the Muslim religion.
Okay.
Because it came about at a time, I feel like, well, from my experience with it, women are kind of like under their husbands. Like it promotes a lot of submissiveness. And I think
so
Christianity is like, inequalities. I think Christianity, or like the evangelic type of Christianity that she like fell into, it's more equal. Like that code requires more equity between like a husband and a wife, or like a husband or mother and her child, like her male child. And
well,
like
I think the Bible teaches that Jesus is the head.
Yeah.
You know, there's God, there's Jesus, then the husband is the head, and it all flows that way. It's all very, very patriarchal.
Very patriarchal, yeah. But like when I was growing up, we didn't really like follow the Bible that closely. Like it was evangelic. It's like you go to church and then it's like, prosperity gospel.
Yes.
Prosperity gospel, stuff like that. So like prosperity gospel, I feel like it doesn't really care whether you're a man or a woman. It just cares like you can.
I know what it cares about.
Yeah, it cares about like whether you can put offerings in the offering basket.
I know.
I feel like so.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
You have a great day.
You too, fam.
Right. So let's start off, my fellow travelers, on this traveling orb.
The orb that we're orbiting.
We're orbiting here.
Yeah, my fellow orbiters. The one I want to start off with is the presence and interaction with this incomprehensible truth.
Right.
There's some, and I've heard this before. There's something, and it was. I actually held this kind of belief for a while when I was transitioning from an agnostic state to an atheist, because it took me a while to really cross that final line of no return. Because when you deny Christ, that's it. You're done. It's over. And I'm still entertaining the belief that there's something out there that I just don't understand. It exists in a way and means that I would never be able to. My mind just is incapable of comprehending that. And that was basically me kind of coming to terms with there may or may not be a God. I don't care, but I don't believe that he has any active role in my day-to-day life.
Right.
What are your thoughts? Let's start with you, Rachel.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit more deistic-like, and that's pretty similar to my transition out of religion. Was that you kind of first start off and like aspects of the religion go away. It's like, creationism dropped off, I think, first,
right?
And then the Bible dropped off, and then I dropped out of Christianity, and then something else is out there. So
now, did the fear of rejecting God finally, because if the Bible says if you deny Christ, I will deny you in heaven. I will deny you before my Father.
Unforgivable sin.
It's the unforgivable sin. Did that ever play into that unease of going from that? Okay.
No, for sure. Yeah. I remember my grandmother, I viewed her as like the most loving person I've ever known in my life. But she sat me down one day and told me that, it's like, you can't not ever believe, because that's, you can't turn back from that. Right. And and it did. It kind of, drags your feet a little bit, and you're thinking, and it's like you can't quite just drop it all. And yeah.
What about you, Andrew? I'm not familiar too with your past, other than what's public record.
Well, in my criminal record, it's funny. I don't remember having that real fearful struggle when I finally did come out of religion. When I say finally, I mean when I was about 21, 22. It was
what was your religious background? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, sure. It was Baptist and then Seventh-day Adventist.
What is a Seventh-day Adventist? Just really quick.
Yeah. It's basically the same as all the other Christians, except they believe that they keep the original Jewish Sabbath because Constantine, I think it was, who just changed it to Sunday.
Yep.
And so they keep that, and they tend to have more of a focus on keeping some of the other Old Testament laws, like not eating shellfish, and there's most of them are, well, I don't know about most, but a lot of them are vegetarian and
Levitical law.
Right. Yeah.
As a side note, so I'm an author, a horror author, and I've done research on a lot of the Antichrist, number of the beast type of thing. And one of the theories that I've come across quite a bit is that the changing of the Sabbath was meant to trick the congregation or the believers into violating the Sabbath, because the number of the beast is not a physical mark that you're taking. It's not a mark that you're going to receive on your hand, on your forehead, but they're representation of action. So the mark on the hand is a symbol of action or transaction. So you are transacting on the Sabbath, therefore violating one of God's holy sanctums. And that is actually, so when you are buying, Christians, when you are buying shit on Saturday instead of Sunday, yeah, you're actually taking the mark of the beast.
I think I remember that song, "The Mark of the Beast."
Yeah, the mark of the beast. So, but I've done a lot. I've actually done a lot of reading, and I came across this, and I've actually used this in my story plot lines because it's trickery. Because you think about it, nobody in their right mind, no matter how evil, is going to put a number on their forehead. We're too vain for that.
Are you sure? I've seen some crazy tattoos in my day.
I'm going to exclude Manson and somebody like that, but for most part, we're not going to blemish our face with the mark. It had to be something more secretive, more deceptive, and this was one of the proposed hypotheses on how that could have happened. So one of the popes had changed, and it was a pope who so happened his name, you could pull out the number 666 out of the numbering of his letters in his name, something like that. But he had changed. He was one of the ones that were responsible for changing the day of the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday to trick people into actually violating the Sabbath when they were free to do financial transactions and whatnot on Saturday, thinking that they were doing it on Sunday.
Interesting.
So is tithing a financial transaction? Like giving your money to the church, is that considered financial?
I don't know. I never did though.
Good question. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, because I'm just thinking, it's like, why would God care when you transact?
Well, he cared so much that if you saw your neighbor doing work on a Sabbath, that you were given permission to kill him.
Kill him. Yeah.
Yep. And oxen too. If they did shit on the Sabbath, they were killed too. What did the ox ever do to you?
Right.
Damn oxen.
I know.
They should have known better.
Right? They should have known not to work on the Sabbath.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd never, I believed in the whole number of the beast thing. And, I thought it was a physical mark and it was going to be like a representation of end times and all that. And I never did buy into the whole, like.
Did you ever see the movie A Thief in the Night?
No.
Oh Lord,
Was that a good one?
Shit out of, so it was it was a rapture story.
Oh,
they would show it to us at church, and I remember I was like 10 years old watching this show, and what it is a woman wakes up and the rapture happens, and the evil atheists, secular community were hunting down the Christians that were left behind.
Well, that is what we're going to do. And we are planning to do that.
Well, they were
right.
Yeah. It was like an underground, escaping the authorities. They had public executions. They were beheading children. They were mass executions. It was horrible. And spoiler alert. She wakes up and realizes it's all a dream. And as she's getting up, the alarm goes off and it says that there are mass disappearances. So it means that the story's going to start at that point.
And I think the
there
whole
was
movie.
Read your Bible. Read your Bible. It's all in there.
Crazy.
A thief in the night. You don't know when he's going to show up. He's like a thief in the night.
Right? And live your day as if he would come like a thief in the night. Yeah.
Is this one of those like Ed Wood's So Bad It's Good kind of movies? Should I check it out?
It is, and I've spoken with Noah Lugens. This is one of his favorites.
One of his favorites.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, one of them, and he was like, but going back to it is that this was a scare tactic that was used on children. It scared the living shit out of me. It was very traumatizing. The thought, and it really emphasized, as a child, I may be good and God will take me, but what about my parents? My parents are, I used to have nightmares about me being raptured and my parents being left behind, or vice versa.
Oh wow!
And it was it's horrifying. Again,
trauma.
Exactly, and it was induced trauma, scare tactics, and even in our comments we see this. If you don't believe we are living in the end times, you will burn. They actually joyfully say you will burn in hell for not believing what I believe. I like to kind of retort that, saying, "Well, is that your place to tell me that I'm going to hell?" If you're going to stand before your God and God's going to ask you how you spread His message of love and peace and joy by threatening people with eternal punishment, then maybe you have something to be concerned about when you stand. Which I don't believe it will happen, but
right.
Well, see, Derek, the problem with the way you're thinking is that you're making too much sense.
That's a first I've ever heard anybody say that.
That's just too logical. Don't you know that you're not supposed to think logically when you're absorbing all this stuff? Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
But, to quickly answer the question as far as, I do hear this a lot about how people, when they're transitioning out of religion, they do feel a lot of fear and like dread, like, well, what am I, and I did feel some of that back when I was a religious believer. But oddly, I don't recall. It was about a 2-year transition where I read a lot of the atheist literature at the time, and then I read the apologetics, and it just seemed obvious to me the apologetic literature was so much weaker. The arguments they didn't hold up, and the atheist ones did. And over a period of a couple years, I just realized, okay, I guess I don't believe anymore. And at that point, I didn't feel any fear or dread at all. It was just okay. It's kind of like. How they say when someone gets out of a cult and they look back and they're like, what the hell was I thinking? None of that. They can see it clearly then, right? Yeah. Whereas when they were in the cult, they couldn't.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how it was. I look back and like, why? Of course that stuff doesn't make sense. What was I thinking?
Right. Mm-hmm. I can do that now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It took a while to really, and then once you kind of make that conversion, for me at least, I was, dealing with that whole dread of if I'm making the wrong choice and dealing with that whole Pascal's wager and everything. But
what's interesting about this gentleman here is, so we talk about, the incomprehensible truth. He's very honest that he doesn't believe that this has any impact on his day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. But it's really interesting that, first of all, something that is incomprehensible. We have people that have created large organizations that claim to understand or be influenced by this incomprehensible thing. And if this incomprehensible truth holds the key to our eternal paradise, eternal life, and is our only escape from this horrible, tormentous existence of eternal damnation, why would he be incomprehensible?
Yeah, if he's incomprehensible, why do we have the Vicar of Christ on earth as the Pope?
Yep.
Why would he play hide and seek? Why would he be so mysterious if he loved us and didn't want us to have eternal death or eternal torture, depending on your denomination? He wouldn't play these games. He wouldn't put it in some ancient book from 2,000 years ago that's gone through all these translations and then say, "Oh yeah, that's my proof." Yeah. Everyone should just have no standard of evidence and just believe this, or I'm going to eternally destroy you because I love you. And there's no way you can make sense out of that when you step back from it and then just look at it objectively. There's no way that the pieces fit. It's just ridiculous.
Especially if you're looking at even modern interpretation. So we have the King James version and New King James.
Oh, right.
The NIV, and you take one passage and you compare them, and you can get different things from each one. A lot of our believers,
but see, God is not the father of confusion, though, right? And yet, there's a mountain of confusion.
There is, yeah.
So a lot of times, our believer friends like to say, "Well, you just don't understand the Bible, or you are been denied understanding of it, or you're out of context." My response is that again, if this is the perfect, infallible message from God, why is there so much confusion? Even looking at your own dogma and your own religious beliefs, there are so many denominations that you argue among yourselves with. Why is there so much confusion over what God wants from us, His existence, our purpose? Why is there so much confusion? Mm-hmm. Why for centuries was there Protestant and Catholics killing each other? Why are there even sects within Islam killing each other. Mm-hmm. And again, I'll admit that I'm not very familiar with Islamic, teachings.
Not as familiar with it as Christian.
But again, I don't understand why they're killing each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one to... That's the incomprehensible part.
Yeah.
It's not really incomprehensible.
It's men.
It's just men. I think that loops back to what he was saying about that it was about control and things like that. That's something that when I dropped the Bible the first time, believed that, this Bible's not the Word of God or whatever. It was, you really saw it for the book it was. It was this code that came down, oral history and then came down into written history, and it was a lot of it. It was men were the head under
and that's
God.
a good segue into our next point. The code that this is supposedly to the relay. And now I've heard the argument that that religious vehicles or vectors are good ways to pass along pertinent information to people, particularly with in the Deuteronomical and Levitical and Exodus, we have laws regarding diet. And what better way to restrict people or keep them keep them educated on what is healthy for them was to make it holy law.
Right.
Makes sense. It makes sense. Don't eat that. Don't eat that shrimp. Because first of all, you are nowhere near an ocean, and from the time it took to get them from there to here, it is stinking bad, and it's going to do shit to your stomach. They talk about shrimp being an abomination. I don't think it's necessarily shrimp that was abomination. I think it's what you did to that outhouse that would be an abomination.
Think of what you do to your gut if you ate a rancid shrimp. But
talked about certain harvests. That makes sense. Certain types of food. Even certain behaviors. That's nasty. That's gonna you're gonna be that's nasty. That's gonna do bad things to you. I understand that. Right. Is it a decree from God? That's the question. Prove it.
Yeah. Even the claim that the 10 Commandments were from God. It was, it was supposed to be communicated from God down. Yeah. So why did he need a human to chisel away its stone to write it down? Yeah.
Even why did he have to do it secluded? I don't believe Moses existed, but even looking at the story, he went up there for 40 days and 40 nights, allowed nobody to go. He actually put ropes around the mountain, said, "Don't go up there, or you're going to get it." Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to get into the getcha and gotcha argument.
Gotcha.
But if you go up there, you're going to get it, and you don't want to be got when you get it from the Lord. Disappears for 40 days, comes down with a tablet. And then everybody's like, ooh. Actually, nobody was actually wooed because what did they do? They got bored and got the prettier, calf idol.
Golden calf idol or whatever.
And you know what? They partayed.
And Moses was pissed.
He was pissed. Yeah. He made him drink. He made him drink the calf.
Yeah.
Grind that shit up and drink it.
Yeah, but he was talking about...
He made him do abominations later.
That it was a set of rules or a code that, was for controlling or... keeping people in check and stuff like that.
But when we go, I think what he's talking about also is, really was morality, ethical behavior, how we treat each other. I think that's really what he was emphasizing. And a really famous quote comes to mind by Arthur C. Clarke is one of the greatest downfalls of man was when we allowed religion to hijack morality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree.
We don't, coming from the stances that we come, we believe that our morality comes from how we were taught, how we were raised, how we learned what is beneficial to each other to survive. It's evolutionary. It did not come from a holy book, and it did not come from a unexplainable truth that exists somewhere in an incomprehensible state.
I think some people they use religion as a convenient shortcut. It kind of I can kind of analogize it to I don't know if your parents were like this, but remember when you would ask your parents, why do I have to do this? And they'd say, because I said so.
I said so. Yeah.
How simple can you make everything when you just say, well, because God said so?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Well, that makes everything a lot more simple than
And the punishment is death if you break that rule. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's an interesting point, because we have changes societies coming right now. We have more of a positive outlook on gay and lesbian relationships. And one of the complaints that I heard a lot was, well, I do not want to talk to my kids and explain to him why that man is kissing that other man and that woman is kissing another woman. And, and I was like, and it really comes to that, do as I say, because I tell you so. It's like, well, okay, so you're being forced to tell your kids about life, reality.
Right.
That's, that's kind of what it is. I don't want to tell you why that's wrong. Just do it. And we have so many examples in history where people were doing what they were told without exploring, well, why.
And here's what's interesting. Running with that analogy, now that I just thought of it as you were speaking, if I recall correctly, current parenting psychology research is telling us that all that because I said so stuff was a terrible way to parent your child.
Yeah.
Because you actually, it's much better if they do have an understanding of why you don't want to eat that shrimp at that point, rather than because I said so. Well, then what are you really, you're not instilling in your child the ability to reason this stuff and figure this stuff out on their own. If you can explain why you were doing it and instead of the because I said so, or in this case, because God said so, they may actually end up being a wiser, better, more moral person because they understand why they're being moral.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It doesn't have to be something complex. If you've got a 5-year-old, you're not going to get into like complex logic and things like that. Just a brief, rundown of it. But I think it's, it does tend to point to bad parenting and that kind of just, I want a little kind of automaton to be like me and do what I want and everything.
But he hit the nail on the mark when he said that that the religious codes are instituted as a means of control.
Right.
The only thing that really came to mind is that again we can also disprove that because we have. I'm just going to list out a couple of secular governments that. And I'm just going to list them out. It'd be Scandinavian countries, Japan, Australia, Netherlands. They are faring well better than a lot of areas. And when you compare them, and I'm going to let the viewers just compare them yourselves. When you compare those to places like Colombia, Jamaica, El Salvador, Yemen, Malawi, Pakistan, Philistines, etc., make up your own mind and see what is, who is more happier, who's thriving, education levels, all sorts of things. You compare the two, and so that begs the question to be asked: do we need religious codes to be a successful society? Because, and again, he didn't really touch on that. What he did touch on was means of control.
Right. But then, he went on to say that we're just, we can't find out if this is real. We're just following it, kind of like blind faith a little bit. Yeah. But
until science tells him.
Well, I mean, then you have, it's not really a code per se. It's more of a pronouncement of a code. It's not something to live by. It's something we're telling you to live by. And then, as famously, Eric Murphy talks about his Book of Eric. It's like, what if the Book of Eric, you open it up and it's got
a couple copies over there. Do we need to consult the wisdom of the Book of Eric?
I don't think there's much wisdom in it. But not a slide on Eric. I mean, I think that they're blank, actually. But, what if his book was, that Derek, you had to do this job or that job or whatever, and that was the book that we grew up with. It would suck.
Yep.
But I mean, he brings it into, he kind of equates it to this caste system, which that caste system. When you say that, it immediately invokes the Indian caste system, but when you look at it as a little bit more of a overarching thing, you start seeing that as we kind of fall into that in just normal society, and religion seems to have it built in where you have that these people are less than these people. It's like women are secondary to men, their property, their money, kind of thing like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see as religion and theism evolve, it try to incorporate these new, wider thinking type of things. So they're trying to really, I think, kind of brush under the rug, yeah, we do believe that, but really women are equal. And he actually mentions that his mother left Islam to join the evangelical.
Right.
So that because she could be treated equal.
Right.
Well, of course, the Muslim philosophy or religious outlook, we're setting the bar pretty low to begin with. So I can understand his, where he's saying, what he's saying
as far as treatment of women.
Yeah, they're setting the bar pretty low. So the graduation from, and I don't want to be too mean on Muslim because I don't want to get jihaded, but the level of the treatment, from there to evangelical is a step up. I will give her that.
Well, seemingly so.
Seemingly so.
Seemingly so. Yes.
And this is where can I come in and talk about this for a couple minutes because I did some research on this.
You did?
Yeah. As far
Bless
as
your heart.
Oh, thank you. Well, as far as Islam, basically the Quran and Hadith versus the Bible, which one is worse when it comes to sexism? Well, what I've found is because we most of us coming from a Christian background, coming out of it, we know the countless verses, Old and New Testament, that are just pretty brutal with either the sexism and misogyny and just seeing women as property or as inferior like children. And judging from the way Muslim countries are today, we would assume we'd see a lot of that same stuff in the Quran and Hadith. And we kind of do. There is this kind of overriding theme. Obviously it was written by men for men, so everything's from the perspective of men. So you get all this stuff about husbands. This is how you're supposed to you're supposed to do this with your wife, and da-da-da. And there's not much in the way of wives. This is what you're supposed to. It's more like very male centric, right? But as far as the blatant, like in your face sexism, I was surprised to find that. Well, it's like this. There's one guy who kind of puts the Bible over the edge where I would literally say that the Bible's actually worse than the Quran and Hadith as far as the number of sexist verses. And I think we can all put that at the feet of Paul. If you remove Paul from the equation, what he wrote, all the epistles, the Bible and the Quran and Hadith are roughly equal in just their sexism. But once you throw Paul in there, man, Christians for the win when it comes to
just on a side note, when I talked about my research I'd done earlier, one of the theories was that Paul was the Antichrist.
Oh, wow. Well, they say he was I think according to Catholics, he was the first pope.
Yes.
And
no, I'm sorry, Peter was.
Oh, Peter. Okay, my bad. But according to a lot of secular Bible scholars, they lay the blame for the spread of Christianity. The father of Christianity in some ways was Paul, because he was the one who kind of brought it out of this small little local cult and started making it this making this big thing. And I was joking with Ben earlier today that Paul was kind of like the OG MGTOW. He had some issues with women. He just didn't, maybe it's a mommy issues or something, but,
or daddy issues.
Who knows? But I was surprised that while the Quran has a lot of, and the Hadith have a lot of horrible stuff in them, that are just really immoral and, not, anything any enlightened person would want to believe. The amount of sexism, I'd say, is a little bit less than what's in the Bible, surprisingly. So we, of course, in Muslim societies today, we see, women are far more oppressed than they are in Christian majority societies. And I think that's more a place of where, some people say that the Muslim world is kind of at the stage that the Christian world was, 300-400 years ago, and so hopefully humanity will survive long enough for the Muslim world to kind of get out of that stage. But so that's what I found as far as if you were to compare how bad the sexism is in the scriptures of the two religions. I'd say Paul, thanks to Paul, he alone, almost every different epistle, he's got something about how women, you can't do this and that, and
gossipers.
Yeah, even, however many, just about 2,000 years or so later, my mom, believes that, or believed that women shouldn't be preachers or, stuff
because Paul commanded they couldn't. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Isn't it interesting? And I just thought about this. It's interesting that the good portion of the modern modern doctrine of Christianity is based upon Paul, who never even as far as I know, met Jesus in person. Mm-hmm. He had a vision, got bitch slapped off his donkey or whatever, was blind and was healed by Peter. But so we have at minimum 11 men who walked with Christ for 3 years, heard everything, lived, ate, slept, drank with him. And we have maybe a letter from Timothy. I think we have First and 2 Peter. But for most part, it's Paul. And why? I've always asked this question, even when I was a believer. Why is it that Paul was given this opportunity to speak with Christ, through this vision? Why can't I get that? Mm-hmm. I would be probably just as passionate, just as motivated to spread His word if I knew if my Lord and Savior had graced me with His presence and graced me with this mandate, to spread His word. And I tell you what, it wouldn't be all this, back talk, talking about women and everything,
right?
It'd be something more pertinent.
Mm-hmm. A little bit more.
I wouldn't be telling masters obey your slaves obey your masters, even the cruel ones. That wouldn't be coming out of my mouth.
No. And if something was in the part of the religion and I came in later and was thinking I was the Messiah or whatever, I would have been like, no, that's wrong.
My episcopal emails would be like Bill and Ted. Be excellent to each other.
Be excellent to each other.
Wow, it's funny how, Bill and Ted have more wisdom in their movies than in the Bible.
Right.
Rachel, where are you going to take us? What do we have next that you want to discuss? Because I know you always want to discuss something.
Well, I do, yeah. Don't get me talking. He was talking about how, we're all acting according to our own codes, and is a little bit contradicted by what he said earlier, right. I think. But regardless, I think that's something that a lot of believers out there kind of misinterpret about atheism is they think that atheism is the code we live by now.
Right.
And that's just not the case.
No.
It's
a single statement on a single stance.
And then the rest of it is, it tends to get jumbled together too, as they'll be like, oh, the atheist, Richard Dawkins is talking about whatever.
Yeah. And it's also that code where they co-opt it as something coming from God. Oh, you may be saying you're atheist, you think you're atheist, but really you believe in God. And all that good actions, all those good thoughts, that compassion and ethical behavior, that's really from God because it's inscribed in your heart. Bullshit.
I'm amazed they even think that could possibly be a persuasive argument to us.
Yeah.
It's like, before, this is advice I'd give to everybody. Before you make an argument to someone that you think you want to change their mind, try and put yourself in their shoes and think and find out if it would be at all persuasive. Right? That's not going to persuade anybody.
Yeah. Insulting somebody is not a way to change their mind.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yep. Just like one of the arguments that I used to use as younger when I was trying to be more provocative, and I don't do this anymore because it is offensive, but I would challenge them on their prayers, and because a lot of believers say that God has spoken to them, and I tell them no, you've never heard the voice of God, and just to be kind of just to confront him on that. And of course, each one of them said, yes, I have. And I'm like, you lie.
Ooh, okay.
But again, that's the same response that I get when somebody tells me that you do really believe in God. It's just that you hate him.
Right.
I love that. Yeah. Please, can anybody find me the one atheist who's ever been convinced by that argument? Oh, yeah, you just hate God. Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Oh, okay, I hate, thanks for telling me that. I guess I'll be Christian now. I forgot I hated. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You may hate God, but he loves you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've never, even when I was a believer, I didn't believe that God was written on your heart and everybody knew him and everything.
Yeah. But it says it in the Bible.
Does it?
It does.
Okay.
And guess who said it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah,
he said that that everybody knows the word because it's written in our heart, and we choose to we basically choose to ignore it because we hate God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we want to rebel against God.
Or we want to rebel against God.
Or we just want to keep living in sin. I mean, we know those are ad hominems, and they're not actual arguments. They're ad hominems. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually had an argument with somebody who said, well, you don't accept God because you want to live in sin. And I asked him, well, what sin am I committing? What sin do I want to do? And, of course, when you confront somebody on that, they're like, well, it's like, well, no, tell me, what sin am I committing? And two, what sin have I committed and you've committed that is worthy of eternal damnation and being burnt alive forever and ever and ever? Yeah. What did I do that I deserve? Because a lot of Christians, they believe that they deserve, without the grace of God, they deserve to be punished. They deserve hell. And it's a really sad existence that I am so unworthy, I am so dirty, I am so damaged that, that I'm going to worship the being that created me that way. And the only way that I can escape this future of torment is for me to believe and love this entity. That to me, that's the extreme example of masochism. It is masochistic to believe that.
And it's Stockholm Syndrome.
And it's sadistic for a make-believe God to impose that on his believers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've always said that, if a God revealed him to me, and that's the only way that I could ever come to, it would be a personal revelation. And what surprises a lot of people, a lot of viewers or a lot of believers is that just because he's revealed himself to me and I know that he exists, does not mean that I will worship it.
Right. Yeah, that's no matter what being of whatever comes out, some highly advanced alien, culture shows up, I would recognize that they're there, but I wouldn't recognize their authority over me or anything.
Right. And that reminds me, what Derek just said there, think about it. Okay, if they were this all-powerful entity, the infallible being, they wouldn't care if they wouldn't want you to worship them. They wouldn't be that insecure in the first place.
And Jehovah is extremely insecure.
Right.
He's jealous. He's wrathful. He hates.
They wouldn't need to be worshipped. They would be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm the superior, perfect being. That's and you're not. Okay, that's cool." Yeah. And they wouldn't need worshiping them.
And he regrets.
Yeah.
And to me, regrets means you made a mistake. Mm-hmm. So infallible kind of goes out the window. But that's
isn't it funny how our God has all these human traits, all these human foibles, all these human what's the word I'm looking for? Faults.
Yep. Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, for sure. It is quite interesting how human-like this God is, and even I guess it's just from our perspective as humans, but thinking about it when I was a believer, I envisioned a human, manifestation or something.
Mm-hmm. What would your definition of being good means? Because a lot of times I hear believers say, "My God is a good God."
Right.
What does that mean? What do you think that means?
Well, I fell into that same trap where, I didn't think that there was any evil that God could do or anything like that. I thought that God was love and he was true.
Not according to Isaiah.
I know, but he's also not the author of confusion, but, here we are.
Bullshit. Sorry. Excuse me. I need my cough medicine.
Hey, you do have a cough drop.
Bullshit.
So I've lost my train of thought.
My superpower.
Your superpower.
Any final thoughts before we go into our last topic? Last segment, really.
What was the last segment? Because
your comments.
Oh, okay. Well, Sharif, in the interview that Ben did with Sharif, they touched on this kind of like whether people need the belief in a higher power, and that's something that that's a legitimate question, I think, to ponder, and I've kind of pondered it a while myself. Not so much that in other words, it's not so much that people need a belief in a higher power, but I think I've heard a lot of good arguments on both sides of that issue as far as whether whether we're hardwired for what they call religion.
Right.
But I would say whether we're hardwired for this kind of certainty, a dogma. We crave certainty. We want to know that there's this one thing we can have faith in that's true. And so, and a lot of people feel adrift when they don't have that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm in a place where I can embrace uncertainty, and most atheists can. We accept that there's a lot of things we're just not going to know.
Sure.
But, and a lot of people aren't there. And how do you get them there to where they can not only let go of these toxic religious beliefs, but can avoid replacing them with dogmatic beliefs, whether secular or spiritual, that could be equally toxic. Because a lot of people, and most people, and as I'm sure the three of us at some point in our lives, we craved that certainty, right? Mm-hmm. How do we break out of that craving for certainty where we can embrace the chaos of not knowing everything and still be at peace with that? It's a difficult question, and I'm not certain what the answer is if the same answer applies to everybody.
It's an incomprehensible truth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, he even does that, actually. He's talking about, the higher truth, and there's something out there. And then he kind of appeals to, kind of makes like a God of the gaps argument, saying like, oh, there's all this stuff out there. We're on a floating orb in a vast sea of space. And I kind of feel like, and I know it's a little bit patronizing, but I kind of feel like I was in the same positions as he is. Like I was there. And it's just that process of thinking about it and really examining your belief. And that's what I think religion has a stranglehold on, is that you can't question the belief. That's the big no-no. So, you just, something will come in like that, a comment of, like that we would be making, like an argument or something, and it would just hit that bubble, so to speak, and couldn't, they just can't think about it. They can't not believe. But it was just, it's a slow transition out, I think, and
it really
not
is.
Everybody's going to get there.
Now let's slowly transition out to our outro. So normally we read from viewer comments, or we do our little Bible roulette. We kind of understand, how truths or belief of truth can come out from the Bible. What today I want to talk about really briefly, because we're running out of time. We love comments from our viewers. We love them. We love engaging. We love debating. We love watching our fans debate other fans, and it's awesome. The one thing we are not really too happy with is just the cut and pasting of particularly just Bible verses or other statements from other evangelicals. We want to engage in a fruitful conversation, and just throwing Bible verses at us really doesn't do that. Or refusing to engage in questioning. It is a back and forth.
Right.
We're big people here. The guys, for lack of better words, on our sides, we're asking questions. We want to know why you believe, what you believe, and why. And you theists out there, you need to put on your big boy Jesus underoos and answer the questions. We want to know what's going on with you. What?
It's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street.
Right.
Just throwing out Bible verses at us and then and going, boom, mic drop. It doesn't work that way. We want to understand where you're coming from, what you're saying, because we don't believe that the Bible means anything. It's a book. Prove to it. How do you know the Bible is true? That's what we want to know. Why do you? What in your life has shown this to be truth? What things outside of the Bible has demonstrated you that there is an all-powerful, all-knowing God that is influencing and directing your life? That's what we want to know. Maybe you'll convince us, maybe not. But at least we'll have a genuine, fruitful conversation, and that's what the purpose of this show is. And having said that, thank you guys for joining me at a great time. Please like and subscribe, and please, 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 please join us in the conversation. We love hearing from you. We love engaging you. We'll talk to you later. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.